sleeps, pal.
Welcome to Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and what makes them do what they do. A wise person once said, unless you're waking up in the middle of the night taking notes on your startup, that's not what you're cut out for. You don't pick your business idea picks you. How does this happen? And what keeps entrepreneurs going back for more? Hey there, welcome to our 6th episode of Money Never Sleeps. In this episode, we talk with Karen Malone, one of the co-founders of Centaur, a specialist fund administration company she co-founded along with her 2 business partners in 2009 in Ireland. But here's the thing, they all left well-paying jobs with a big bank in the aftermath of the global financial crisis to start Centaur. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, sometimes it's what you go through with the people you work with the closest that steels your nerves to take on the world together. It starts with a feeling that there's got to be a better way. You build a vision together, and then teamwork makes the dream work. But before I give too much away, let's get on with the show. Hi everyone, welcome to the 6th episode of Money Never Sleeps. I'm Pete Townsend.
And I'm Owen Fitzgerald.
And we are here today with Karen Malone, one of the co-founders of Centaur, a fund administration business here in Ireland that was founded 10 years ago, Karen?
Close to 10 years, yes.
Very good. Awesome. So Karen, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate having you here. Do you maybe want to just tell us a bit about Centaur and what it is that you do?
Great. Hi, Pete. Hi, Owen. Thanks for having me here today. Centaur, as you mentioned, is a fund administration business set up in 2009, providing specialist administration services to investment funds, initially in Ireland, but now we have offices globally with about 110 staff in those locations. And hopefully as the years go by, we'll grow even further.
Very good. And why did you do it?
Being in the investment arena probably for 20 years, myself and the co-founders saw an opportunity actually in the market. There was a lot of consolidation, a lot of banks were getting into the industry, and we felt that there was a place for a business like ours that could deliver high touch, quality, professional services to our ultimate clients.
Okay. And when you and I talked a couple of weeks ago and I asked you to come on the show, I kind of wanted to see how you viewed your role, right? And that I see you as an entrepreneur. And what you said to me was, well, I was 9 years ago. And how have things developed over the last 9 years in terms of your mindset towards being one of the co-founders of this business with Eric Bertrand, who I know well, who I work with in Bermuda, and then Ronan Daly as well. But I never had the pleasure of working with him all that much. But the 3 of you are partners in this business, and how has that kind of evolved? And your role as one of the 3 that are leading the business, how has that changed over the years?
It's still as busy as ever. I guess in the last 9 years, what's changed slightly is the risk. So we obviously had all worked together in previous companies. You probably have called us intrapreneurs. We ran very successful businesses for a long period of time as if they were our businesses. We made decisions, we took risks, but they weren't really our risks at the end of the day. We were employees, albeit very senior employees. In 2009, when we set up Centaur, we had financial risk, we had obviously reputational risk. I don't think any of us were worried so much about the reputational side of things. We all had good backgrounds, good careers. We knew we could make it work. But from a financial point of view, it wasn't just our financial backgrounds or stability that we needed to worry about. We all had families. I personally had a very young family at the time, so I was taking them into my decision. But equally, we were taking the responsibility of other people. We're regulated here in Ireland, so we had to have staff on day one. And to have staff, you have to pay staff. Well, we didn't have any clients because we weren't actually regulated. So it was a bit of a vicious circle. So 9 years ago, I guess, that was a big thing on our mind all the time. How quickly can we get revenue to pay the staff that have taken this leap of faith and come to Centaur to work for a business that was only just starting? 9 years on, obviously that risk is gone. So we don't wake up every morning and wonder, who's going to pay the payroll at the end of the month. So we're very sort of successful. We've been profitable for a very long time. So now it's all about just growing the business. So we're growing it. The energy is slightly different, I guess, because you don't have that concerns that we would have had at the very start as to whether we'd be successful or not.
And do you think that given that you're now not at an early stage company or a startup in the same way, has it been a challenge then to adapt your own skills from that to now where you are? And is it a whole different approach that you now have to take?
It's very interesting. We're probably back to where we were when we left our previous roles. So when I left my previous job to do this, I had people across a couple of locations, about 650 staff actually. So when we started Centaur, we had 6 staff. So that was a very unusual place to be. We were open plan, no offices, no segregation of duty. So we actually had gone back in time. Now we're still startup, but the company isn't startup, but each of the new locations that we're moving into is startup. So it's a bit of a mix for us at the moment. We've an established business in 1 or 2 locations, but now we're moving into new markets, so we're back in startup again. So we're in a very, I guess it moves. It's very challenging to adapt our own personal skills on a day-to-day basis. You have to remember, we all ran respective businesses in different locations, so we all had very clear roles. Suddenly we're 3 people in a team of 9, we've 6 staff, and everybody's wondering who does what here. We didn't even know what we all were to do. Thankfully we have skills that transfer across the entire gamut, and we were able to cover each of the different areas. So I think for the next, when I look out in the future, things will probably become a bit more stable for us. We'll probably fall into different roles a bit more naturally. But for now, as we grow in each location, we're still in that startup phase, I think.
And you mentioned kind of being an entrepreneur and running business units in the past. And since I've left the corporate world 2 years ago and started working with fintech startups, one of the biggest realizations for me is this thing called scarcity of resources, or just scarcity. The money could be gone in 30 days. Now, like you said, you've kind of come from, in running a business unit where that there's a budget there when you're in the institutions, to then launching a business, and now that it's at growth stage, is there still that, you said the sleeping at night is not an issue anymore? You're waking up in the morning, the bills are going to be paid, but there's got to be still something there that kind of niggles at you. Oh,
every day, yeah. Okay. What's the next new requirement? What's the next new regulatory change? What are our clients going to want? Can we react? How can we remain nimble? One of the reasons for doing what we're doing is that whole flexibility, that ability to be able to move when things change. When you work in the corporate world, people think they can move, but actually there's a lot more red tape, there's a lot more meetings about a meeting. So we have to remember as we grow and we get bigger that we still remain nimble. And wondering what the next regulatory change might be would keep you awake at night, wondering what your clients might need tomorrow, wondering are they going to still want to work tomorrow, because if they decide that they're rich enough to shut up shop, well, that's going to have an impact on our business. So the growing part of it is never going to go. Like, if we're not growing, we're dying basically.
And how did you find it then, I suppose, with your co-founders when you started off? We had a startup company on 2 weeks ago, and it's 2 guys who've been friends since school, so they would have promised us that they'd never had a falling out so far. But in terms of trying to go from that corporate world into a startup environment with 2 co-founders and working together, trying to build this together, was that a challenge in terms of trying to figure out where everyone's role sat in the scheme of things? It's
interesting you mentioned that podcast, because that's the one I listened to last night. And I did pick up on the fact that they were obviously friends from a very young age. We're not as young, and we all come from different countries actually, so there's a cultural challenge as well as obviously that working relationship. We did have the benefit of working together since 1997, so through our history we all worked in an organisation, albeit in different countries for many of that time. One of the founders, actually, I remember distinctly, we went out to plan this venture, and he said, the business idea won't fail. We won't fail because we're successful people, we're ambitious, we're dynamic, but the partnership might fail. And it made you think, you were entering into a relationship, and I guess for me it was with 2 guys, so that was very interesting. But we're very open, honest people, even with each other. And every couple of months we have a bit of a sound check with ourselves. in terms of what do we all want to get out of this business? Where are we in our own personal lives, our family lives? And interesting, we're all at different stages in our lives, so sometimes you have to lean on one or the other more because you're doing something else outside of the business. So it's something that was in our face from the very beginning, not as a concern, but as something that was so important that we made sure that when we check back in, we actually ask ourselves that question on the first time we go to any strategy meeting. We all have to tell what it is we want from this business, because we're 9 years in. The first couple of years, what do we want to do? We want to make this work. We want to not fail. Now we're 9 years in. People, we all probably have different goals. Thankfully, we're all still on the same page. We still want to build what is a stable, successful, growing business. And that's how we then drive the initiatives within the business.
What was the turning point when you realized you had something?
I'm not sure I have it yet. No, honestly, I mean, it's. I guess we're always trying to get to the next level. Again, it's something that you have to sort of sit back and say, okay, well, what have we actually built here? Because every day you're building more. And anybody who works in any industry, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's even like if you're growing plants. I mean, you reap those and then you move on to the next growth. So when we sit back, we actually realise, wow, we've done something here. We had big ideas. We started small. But for us now, we want to actually scale fast. And that, I think, in the last few years, we really feel we're doing something. We're now an international or global business. Our business is quite interesting. We compete head on with the global multinational companies that are out there, and we win business against them. And we're still a relatively small, boutique, owner-managed business. But yet what we're able to deliver can compete directly with these large, big-scale companies. So it's only when we sit back and realise that we have something here. We've built something from scratch, literally from scratch, a business plan. And now we've got, and the other thing we have, we actually have 100% retention of all of our clients. And that stands to something in a service business, again, not just in our sector, but across all the services. To retain all of your clients is something, and that's what we're most proud of, I guess, is that.
And you've got businesses now or offices now in Bermuda, in New Jersey, in New York, in London, in Luxembourg, a new office opening in Maynooth. How do you manage all that? How do you keep on top of all that?
Talent. We hire talent from the ground up. Whatever role, whatever position, we look for people who have not just the skill set to do the job and execute on their, what it is, what's in their job description, but people who are, talented individuals, leaders from the ground up. So from the most junior person in the company to the most senior person, we try to find people who, without using any expletives, that they give they care. They actually care about us as a business and where the business is going. And it's hard. It's really, really hard because it's constant effort to look for people who, that you think care enough to go above and beyond. And that doesn't mean work late. We actually are very solid. We've a very, our turnover levels are quite low for our industry. But they don't work late, it's just they work smart. And then we obviously supplement that with smart technology, with innovation, and try to make sure that we're constantly giving them the tools so that they can add value to their role and that they can, be that talent that we went and got.
And when you look at hiring people then, especially at the start, when we had Brian Norton on, he spoke about the challenge in his role in terms of giving like one of his kids away, in the sense that it was his from the start, and trying to find the right people to give that control away to, especially on something you're building at the very start. Is that hard to identify in some ways, the right person?
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of trust that you have to try and build with people. We're probably fortunate as industry veterans. We probably have a history of hiring people that we've worked with before. It doesn't mean we haven't hired new people. I think because we're three, it makes it easier because it's not any one of our babies, so to speak. And therefore we challenge each other to make sure that we are relinquishing, certain tasks, and that we're pushing ourselves to give more to the business and not stay in the, the basics of what we did from the very beginning. So it is hard, obviously. But I think if you have a constant agenda item as to where's the next talent coming from, who's the next person that we're going to give more responsibility to, and then you have to trust. You really have. People are so ambitious depending on the generations that you're dealing with. You have to recognise that too. So there's a lot of analysis that you need to carry out to know what type of people you're dealing with. But people are generally ambitious. People are generally hungry to want more, and it's important for us to empower them. They have to feel that they're the entrepreneur within. We did it for years, and it wasn't our company. And now it's important that we make sure that our staff feel that they are running this company as if it's their own.
Yeah. Now, do you remember the year 2003?
For a couple of reasons, but remind me.
Yeah. So I used to work for Karen back in the day, when Karen was running the Dublin office for the business I was working for, and I was living in Bermuda, working on a little project that shall remain nameless. And there are other folks around town who worked on that project here as well, one of whom I had lunch with yesterday and says hello. And I came to Dublin to help out with a certain something. And I remember, I think it was on my first or second day that I was in the Dublin office, you asked to speak with myself and the individual that I had lunch with yesterday, just to share your feelings on the topic. And what I remember from that conversation is that you were very specific, but in a very reasonable kind of way, in terms of, and fair, in terms of, okay, well, yes, I understand what happened, but we need to put a plan in place for this to get better. And how are you going to do it? And it's like, here you go. Just please go do it. So it was clear for me what your expectations were, and I got that. That was in a time of crisis, right? How do you keep people moving towards a set of expectations that's not only just yours, but is also Eric's and Ronan's, obviously shared, right? But that's a big, tough thing, is keeping people moving and marching in one direction, especially as you're growing. How do you do that?
Maybe it comes back to me as a person. I like to get the job done, but recognise at the same time that there's going to be a few different ways potentially of getting the job done. So inclusion of people at the outset to discuss the problem, okay, have some ideas myself as to how it might be delivered upon, but allow other people have input so that they feel included in the overall plan. But be involved, actually lead by example. You can't just, I mentioned earlier, we don't even have offices, so you don't have a meeting and then close the door and hope somebody else gets on with it. We are open plan, so we lead by example. We walk the floor, we talk to people, we include them in our plans, we share where it is that we're looking to go. And that's slightly different, I guess, to what we're able to do in previous organisations. When you don't own it, you can't share all the vision. Well, now we can. There's no reason why we can't include people and hopefully empower them to make the right decisions and get the job done.
Yeah, no, I get that. That does come through. I get that in terms of just being able to say, hey, listen, this is yours, go do it. There's no one else that you have to answer to, right? And that you've got that level of trust between the three of you to do that. Cool.
And I think people want that because I worked with Brian Norton in Future Finance as a startup, and from day one, everyone felt like it was theirs. But it does take a certain skill, especially when you've come from a corporate world whereby, everyone has an ownership for something, but reality is it's not yours, and the place will move on without you, sort of thing. It's probably hard to to get people to buy in from the start without being as inclusive as you can with it.
Yes, and whilst our ending point before Centaur was that corporate world, our starting point as a group of people was actually more in the entrepreneurial sort of way. The business that we all started with and ended up managing and growing allowed us be those people. I went to Bermuda when I was 25 years of age. I came back at 26 as the managing director of a startup business in Dublin, thinking these people are absolutely mental. Who would put their trust in anybody actually, no mind somebody of that age, and having only known them for a year. That showed me that you can do that, and people will get on and do the job, whether it's whatever the job was at the time. It was probably everything from delivering the product to selling the services to hiring the right people. We did that for quite a long time, and it was probably the turning point actually for us as individuals when the last acquisition occurred of that business. We realised that sense of being able to run your business the way you wanted to, make decisions. People fail. Try new things. If you're going to fail fast and then just move on. Don't procrastinate for too long, and otherwise you'll never make decisions. If you fear you're going to fail. So that's what we do, and we pick people back up if they make the wrong decision. So be it, you move on. You know, you just and you help them through that. So it does take a lot of effort. It does take a lot of time and energy. But our people are our asset. We have nothing else. We're a service business, and we can layer on all the technology and all the processes that we want to. But you still need people. We're a professional services business that requires somebody to speak to clients. Deliver the service. So for us, it's all about investing in the people.
You talked about leadership by example and empowering others, getting involved. What other personality traits of yours do you think has led to your success? You used to be a football player, weren't you?
Yeah, I played football,
yes.
Pete. Yeah, I mean, I personally, I look at this, people probably would describe me as being competitive. I would potentially say determined. They're probably the same thing. I like to succeed in what I do. I don't necessarily need to win. I like to succeed, and when I do something, my first summer job, I was about 13 years of age. I probably pretended I was 16 so I could get a job picking tomatoes on summer holidays. Cycled up, probably didn't tell my parents I was gone, came back at the end of the day. I'd got the job because I wanted the job. All you had to do is pick tomatoes and weigh them at the end of the day. Well, I had to pick the most so that I could earn the most. And from then, every single job I've ever had has always been just to be determined to do a good job, do the right job. And, I like to have fun too, so I probably push myself a little bit harder to make sure that I have a good balance in my life and make sure, obviously, I have a family and children, so I have to make sure that I give it all in work, but when I come home I have to give it all again.
On the flip side of Pete's question, then, what, I suppose, from a personality point of view, have you felt you've had to work on as you've moved from that somewhat corporate world into running your own business with that ownership, and what do you think you've had to learn and work on over the last 9 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me, I think, is the young dynamic workforce that we have today. So we're now back. I find it a very interesting place where we are. You might go to a social with your staff. People are so confident now, like even the young people in the office. So there's no demarcation. So for me, I've had to probably figure out what's going on in the real world with the kids of today and understand the slang and that. And it might sound a bit flippant, but actually it means the staff trust you then as an individual. You're trying to not be like them, but at least understand them and what it is that they're all about. So having played football before, I still, I'm involved in lots of different sports or whatever. And part of it is just so I can have a conversation with people, just to keep them a little bit motivated that it's not just all about work all the time.
No, so who did you play football for, just out of interest? Or?
I was local clubs at Premier level here. I would have liked to have played at a more senior level, but I chose a different path.
One of the interesting things you said to me recently when we were having a chat about what I was up to and, talking about my experience in the industry over the last 20x years, whatever, and one of the things you said was quite interesting in that there's loads of folks out there that have been in the industry for 20 years, but those that have made the switch and made the move to doing something new that's probably a bit more interesting. How do you see kind of the changes in what's going on in the world, in the digital world and technology, kind of changing beyond just the staff you hire from, that are more digitally readily and digitally enabled to your business and how you engage with customers?
Yeah, our industry has evolved. There's no doubt about it. That project you're talking about was a tech project, if I remember correctly, back in 2003. So the technology side of what's available for us from a technology point of view is so much more powerful than it ever was before. So for us, it's all about ensuring we have the best of technology, because I don't think the users of the technology or the receivers, so the client or our staff, will accept substandard technology anymore. There's limitations to what amount of technology we can put in our service business. As I mentioned, you still have to speak to clients, but there's still a lot of powerful tools out there, and clients themselves are becoming much more tech savvy. Well, actually, not even the client, but the client's client. So the investors are becoming so tech savvy; they want things instantly. It's about the instant availability of information.
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
If it's not there in a second, when you hit your phone, they're shut off.
Exactly. What's the problem? The internet's slow. Well,
But I think that's reflective in people's daily life, and now they want that to feed into their working life. If you can I spoke to someone about this yesterday, like if you can get information, recommendations from Netflix and Amazon and that, you expect that in the banking world, or in financial services where they have all this information about you, whether as a customer or as a retail customer. So it puts that expectation there, which obviously drives a lot of the change then.
Absolutely, and I mean it's great. It's actually really, really powerful what's happening generally, and people should just embrace it. There's obviously a lot of negativity around that instant gratification of from a technology point of view, but then you just have to. You need to put controls around that. But at the same time, people will expect things to come much more quickly and be available.
All right, I think we've gone around the house. One thing that we do like to ask everybody when we get towards the end is, what's one thing that people don't know about Karen Malone?
Interesting. I was going to say I played football at a professional level.
I called you a football player.
You've
Sorry
already
about
done
that.
Yeah, no. Well, one thing what's interesting, I'm a very open person, so I think a lot of people will know a lot about me in terms of what I do. And obviously there's the technology side of things with the internet, so you can find out what you want to find out. As a child, as well as picking tomatoes on my summer job, I actually was a javelin thrower.
Wow.
So I used to win quite a lot of medals at All-Ireland level as a javelin thrower. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So be careful.
Yeah, you hit the spear on that one.
There you go. That's the arrow in the Centaur.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank Karen for opening up her mind for the 6th episode of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast brought to you by Owen Fitzgerald and me, Pete Townsend. We're now on iTunes, so please subscribe and check out moneyneversleeps.ie for more. We'd also like to thank Gav Timlin and Conan Brophy from Create Sound for recording and editing this podcast. Finally, thanks to Dogpatch Labs in Dublin for hosting us and for their unwavering support of the startup community in Dublin. Till next time, see ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.